It's Sportingbet TV, and guess what we're talking about? We're talking about the World Cup, of course, which is getting ever closer, and the excitement levels here in the Sportingbet office are reaching fever pitch, and we've got a great promotion up on the website at the moment. I hope you've taken notes of that. The £100,000 World Cup group giveaway, and that guarantees you up to £100,000 if you can manage to pick the first and second in all 8 groups of the World Cup in correct order. Seems quite easy, doesn't it? Well, I know a man who can steer you in the right direction. That is my colleague here, Mark O'Hare. Mark, excited about the World Cup, yeah?
Yeah, I really can't wait now, Chris. I've done all my homework, just counting down the days till June the 12th.
It's more exciting than that. Counting the Christmas even. But absolutely. Anyway, let's start with Group A. Let's start with Group A. Let's start with the top seeds in Group A, who are the 11-4 favourites to win the World Cup, and the hosts, and of course, Mark, are Brazil, and under a lot of pressure to deliver for the unsettled population of Brazil. Will they do it?
I wouldn't be putting my money on them at 11-4, put it that way. I think it's a little bit skinny, and I think there's quite enough questions or weaknesses around that Brazilian team to oppose them and look elsewhere for your outright bet. And of course, they've already won it 5 times. They've not failed to win their group, though, since 1978, and that's the kind of statistic which I love when it comes to betting. Of course, you can't back them to win their group at 2-11, but you can back them to win all 3 games at 23-20, which does appeal to me, because Mario Mandzukic is suspended for Croatia in the opening game. And of course, last year at the Confederations Cup, they showed us what they could do on home soil when the pressure was on. They won the competition as they did in 2005 and 2009. But remember, back in 2006, 2010, they were favourites to win the World Cup after winning the Confederations Cup, and they flopped as well. Of course, they're at home on home soil as well, which will be an advantage to them. But I just think you look elsewhere and look around the squad and you think there's a huge over-reliance on Neymar to produce and create. Oscar as well, who's quite a young lad as well. They're both young lads. Defence is probably their strongest part of the Brazilian team, which is just unheard of when you look down the old Brazilian teams and the names they used to produce. I think they lack a bit of creativity in midfield as well. And yeah, they've only lost 2 of 17 World Cup games now, which was France and the Netherlands in the last 2 World Cups for those statos. I think the pressure cooker atmosphere could easily work against them, and therefore you've got to look at away from them to win the World Cup. They're even odds on to reach the semi-finals. That's how much the bookmakers think they're going to do this. But I think 9 points from 3 games, 23-20 is my probably best bet for Brazil in the groups.
Odds against, it's a good shout, because I think they're in a very weak group, to be honest. And let's talk about the second seeds in Group A, and that's Croatia, a team that famously lost twice to Scotland in qualifying. Anyway, there's a suggestion, Mark, that this isn't a vintage Croatian side. Do you subscribe to that?
I do, to a certain extent, but there's a lot of negativity around this Croatian team as well from so-called experts, which I don't subscribe to in a way. The big bad wolf, Igor Stimac, has gone, the former coach who led them to a pretty mediocre campaign where they picked up just 1 point from their final 12 on offer in the qualifying group with Scotland. Niko Kovac, former captain, has taken over, former under-21 boss as well, and optimism is back, and so it should be, because they were very functional rather than flashy through qualifying, just scored 12 goals in their qualifiers. There'll be a different beast in Brazil, I think. You just look at that midfield of Luka Modric, Ivan Rakitic and Mateo Kovacic. It's outstanding, probably the best in the group if anything as well. So the back 4 is weak, they haven't got a left back, they really suffer in defensive midfield as well. But I think you just look at that group and the teams they're going to come up against. They'll probably have 0 points after the first game against Brazil, but they can beat Mexico and Cameroon as well. The draws against them, they got to go to Recife and Manaus, where it's going to be really, really hot, but they keep the ball. They're very technical, and possession is key for them. So I think the 10-11 on them to qualify appeals to me.
Okay. There's a general suggestion that it's between Croatia and Mexico as to who takes the second spot. So let's talk about Mexico, Mark. And they really struggled in qualifying. Perennial qualifiers, of course, but they really made hard work of it in this 2014 edition. And because of that, the expectations are quite low.
Yes, because it was really how not to qualify for a World Cup in probably the easiest section as well. They only won 2 of their final 10 games in the Hex, what's called the qualifying campaign in in their region. Terrible performances. They used 47 players, 4 coaches as well. Disastrous. Miguel Herrera has taken on the mantle to take them to the World Cup, and he's been using quite a lot of domestic-based players in his 6 warm-up games so far. He's unbeaten in 6 games, but they've not really been tested in those games either. Very poor scoring record, very poor away record in qualifying as well. But let's not forget they did win the Olympics in 2012, so there are green shoots there. They do have talent, although their probably most talented player, Carlos Vela, has been left at home. The Mexican Messi, he's been known as. 7 to 10 on them to fall at the first hurdle, go out in the group stage does appeal. You mentioned they always qualify for the World Cup. They always get to the last 16 as well, so if they do qualify, it's 10 to 11, same price as Croatia, and exit in the last 16, that's 6 to 5 as well. They're housed in Sao Paulo in the south, and they've got to travel to all 3 games in the northeast as well, which doesn't really spell too much for planning there for Mexico. But I think if they can beat Cameroon, that's 3 points on the board, and it should be enough to win the CONCACAF Top Side Award, because USA, probably their only rivals, are in a tougher group.
Well, let's talk about Cameroon, the 4th and final side in Group A. And you hark back to 1990 and that wonderful campaign when they nearly beat England in the quarter-finals. But since then, Mark, they've been very disappointing in the World Cup. And of course, perhaps the nadir was 4 years ago, and they failed to pick up a point in South Africa. Could that happen again?
It could quite possibly do, Chris, because they're probably arriving at the World Cup with their weakest squad at a World Cup. Only 1 World Cup win since 1990 as well. Very poor records. Their FA president's in jail. They're briefly suspended by FIFA. They only got to the playoffs because of a technicality ineligible player from Togo. In that playoff, they beat Tunisia 4-1 after drawing 0-0 in the first game. That was more goals than they scored in their previous 5. They only average 1.13 goals per game. A good coach in Walker Fink behind them, but he's quite an innovative coach, and I don't think he's got too much to work with. An abundance of defensive midfielders and destroyers, but no creators. Samuel Eto'o, he's still got that ego about him. He's complained that players aren't passing him the ball at international level. It's quite pathetic, really. You just look at as well the inability to keep clean sheets. No back-to-back wins in qualifying, just 3 competitive away wins since 2010. There's a lot going against them. They were hammered by Portugal 5-1 in a friendly in March, which doesn't really give me too much hope. That's why they're 5 to 1 to qualify. And you look at the reasons to oppose them: 11 to 20 to finish bottom of the group doesn't really appeal either. Under 2.5 points at 17 to 20 does appeal, though. If they fail to win, that bet's a real runner.
Yeah, that's a good shout, definitely. So I'm guessing, Mark, Cameroon are not on your 1-2. So of course, who, in terms of the World Cup £10,000 group giveaway, £100,000 group giveaway, sorry. Who's your 1-2 in Group A?
Well, it's got to be Brazil to be 1. They're 1 to 5. Everyone's backing them in Group Acas to win the group, and I think, as I mentioned, Croatia.
Brazil 1, Croatia 2 for Mark.